Politics are a tough business. To be successful, you've got to reach the right audience with the right message, and you've got to do it in a way that actually motivates them to get out the door and cast a vote. Now, I also want to clarify this video is in no way an endorsement of either candidate, okay? That I have no interest in that. But what I do want to do is talk about the way the candidates marketed themselves in their campaign and ultimately generated results or didn't. One of the channels that doesn't get nearly enough attention or credit, I think, is direct mail, okay? Direct mail is incredibly important, especially when you've got a race that is predicated on getting kind of homeowner, like suburban type turnout. So what I want to do is look at one of the big national contests from this last election cycle, which was Virginia's 7th House District. This campaign had Abigail Spanberger, a Democrat, trying to unseat Dave Bratt, the Republican incumbent. And it's a very interesting race. There's a lot going on there, but one candidate really used direct mail to their advantage, and the results paid off. Let's take a look quickly at the creative behind the direct mail campaigns. You'll notice right off the bat that Spanberger does a good job introducing herself through mail and painting a very what's the right word? A very digestible image, right? So if you're in a suburban area that is traditionally conservative leaning, but shifting to more of a purple, blue disposition, then one of the things you've got to do is you've got to be mindful that your message needs to appeal to the masses, right? If you're too far one way or another, you're going to lose some votes, and you might kind of paint yourself in a box. So I think Spanberger does a great job with this particular piece, appealing to the kind of everyday voter who hasn't just picked a side, and someone that votes based on the candidate as opposed to the party. So obviously she's wearing a purple. Wearing purple clothes. I think that is an image that paints a non-partisan picture. And she's talking about changing the face of leadership in Virginia. So, this is someone who's going to put you first. And, she even mentions, the community is rallying behind her, which gives a sense that, hey, this is the direction people are heading in. At least it kind of puts that thought out there. Okay, so I think that's important. She presents well and in a way that's not too aggressive. Now, if we flip it around, you'll see that she focuses on certain things. First, she served in law enforcement and at the CIA. Well, even in a conservative district, a Democrat who has that kind of service background is going to be somewhat more appealing, based on the data and kind of historical viewpoint. Someone that has a law enforcement background plays a little better with conservatives. She's also outright saying that she's going to focus on solutions in Virginia and not partisan politics. So again, that's kind of opening the door for people who maybe traditionally don't vote Democrat. They might be able to, vote for her because she's not a partisan. She's not part of the partisan political nature of things. She also refuses to take corporate PAC money. So you'll see this come up in a minute when I show you the next piece, but she emphasizes the fact that, the community is behind her. She's not just bought and sold by, big business or lobbyists, that kind of thing. And then she's also got some bullet points that are very attractive to conservative voters, which is making the economy work, lowering the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs. Think about the suburban voter, right? They've got kids and probably aging parents or family members, so healthcare is a big deal for them. And then also protecting Medicare and Social Security and keeping our nation safe. So these are all things that aren't radical ideas, right? They're general viewpoints that could play well with a lot of people, right? So it's just smart. However you look at it, I think this is or however you vote, I should say, I think this is a piece that makes sense. Now, let's take those ideas and look at another direct mail piece. So this is her opponent, the incumbent Dave Bratt, and she is, this is a negative ad, right? So this is a big part of politics, and love it or hate it, it's the way it is. So this is a negative ad showing, in contrast to her, how this guy is supposedly bought and sold, takes lots of money from big donors and, you know, corporate, you know, industry type fundraising. So it's just it differentiates her, right? Her piece was about how she doesn't do that. Now this piece, which is also from her, which is negative, focuses on how her opponent does do that. So it's a very clear picture, you know, A or B, apples and oranges. So she highlights that throughout the piece. You know, bold headlines, you know, he's against pre-existing conditions. He wants drug companies over health and cuts to Medicare and Social Security. These are basically the opposite of the bullet points that she listed on her presentation piece, if you want to call it that. The next ad is, let's turn it around here, is another one where it talks about, you know, how he's bought, right? You know, so her candidate is bought and sold and the community is paying the price. Again, this is a very negative ad, but love it or hate it, it could be effective, and it paints a picture and it differentiates her from the candidate that she's running against. All right, so there's a bunch of different approaches here, but the main theme is that she is trying to differentiate herself. She's making multiple impressions, and ultimately it turned out to be an effective strategy where she won largely based on suburban voters. One additional key point in her victory was the amount of money she was able to raise. So let's look at the two candidates by the numbers. Spamberger's campaign, and this is based on publicly available information, raised $5.8 million. Bratt's campaign raised 2.7. Out of the 5.8 million that she raised, she spent 5.3. Bratt spent 1.8. So by the numbers, she raised 5.8 million, he raised 2.7. She spent 5.3 million and he spent 1.8 million. Well, 1.8 million can't compete with 5.3. It's just simple math. The amount of exposure, media impressions, and overall campaign impressions that you can make with 5 million as opposed to 1.8 million is it's no contest. So I also found information via the FEC.gov website. This is all publicly available. And one piece of this that I really thought was cool in correlation to this video was she had an expenditure for direct mail listed here. Now this is one part of the campaign. You know, she probably had tons of these, but here's just one to illustrate what happened. So for one direct mail campaign, she spent $20,883.85. What that tells you is that she spent 20 grand and probably mailed roughly 40 to 50,000 pieces of direct mail just with that buy. Okay. If you're in the direct mail industry, the marketing world, you know that, you know, a direct mail piece out the door for a, you know, a saturation type campaign where you're reaching every home on the block is somewhere between, you know, say 30 and 50 cents per piece. You know, and that includes printing, postage, everything. The creative, like the design of the piece and all that, is usually separate. But so figure she mailed 40 or 50,000 pieces of direct mail with this buy, and she probably did buys like this all over the place. With $5.3 million, you can do a lot of direct mail. So I think that's a key differentiator, right? There's no way her opponent with $1.8 million can compete with that. So she made a ton more impressions, and the money tells a big part of the story. And that's why you see so many direct mail pieces that went out. And just one other interesting point, all 3 of these pieces went out on the same day. I actually live in the district in one of the suburbs with my family, and my wife and I received pretty much a full mailbox every day in the month leading up to the election. And that's what the money will do. If you can make those types of impressions, you will saturate each household with your message. They'll know who you are, what you stand for, and it'll also negatively impact your opponent, with the same through the same effort. So it's really just a great position to be in if you're a candidate. Having funding, being able to do lots of direct mail consistently, it makes a big difference. And it's not just me saying that. The results are clear. She won the election, and no matter what position you take or which way you vote, the numbers are the numbers and the stats are the stats. So direct mail played a big role, I think, in a lot of victories around the country. If you're a candidate, whether you're running for a small local office or even at the national level, do not discount the impact of direct mail. You've got to use it. You've got to reach those households, and it will make a difference. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informational. If you'd like to learn more, please visit everydoordirectmail.com, and in 10 minutes or less, you can actually point and click to target your audience, create a wonderful direct mail postcard, and launch your campaign. So if you want to reach voters through direct mail, build your own campaign in 10 minutes or less at everydoordirectmail.com.